doing?
Okay.
Where are you going to go?
I'm going to go.
You can sit there, or what? You want to sit here? Or?
No, I'll sit here, it's fine. I'll sit here.
I'll come around here then or something.
Okay.
Cheers.
Okay.
Yes. I guess I've set the scene, which is simply responding to the letter that we received via the solicitor regarding grievance and the requirement for a hearing, which is what I'm here to do today. So, because I would normally, I've never happened before, but the process would normally be that somebody would have come and listened and understood and noted everything that you had to say, and then they would have presented it to me. Effectively, I am doing both of those things now, so I'm collating the information for myself so that I can get back to you in due course with whatever the appropriate response is. So I think probably the easiest thing, unless you've got any other thoughts, is that we just go through the letter that we received, so that you can just go through in detail for me any of the points that are raised there, so that I can understand what you would like to say. So I'm referring here to the Levere letter of the 31st of July. Okay, and the matters that you would like to have addressed are, if we take them in order, number 1, management cutting off her communications with all departments. This makes it impossible for our client to do her job properly. So if you could just elaborate that for me, I'd be grateful, and just tell me.
All right, I was told I wasn't allowed to communicate with accounts. I was told I wasn't allowed to communicate with the design department, and it just made it very difficult to do my job, because to do my job I get chased up by slides all the time, and when I'm sat in the same office and I can't talk to the person dealing with the accounts, then I can't be prepared for things, and it just made life really difficult. And there was loads of invoice issues, so when I'm not allowed to communicate with them, it just made the job impossible, and made my life very unpleasant, because I'm going to an office where I can't talk to people to enable me to do the job. So.
Okay, so can we go into some detail? Who said this to you, and when was it said?
It was said by Nigel May, which was then supported by Nigel Williams, and then the process again was repeated by Stephen Peters.
So which office are we talking about? You referred to Nigel May and Steve Peters. Are you talking to something that was being said in the context of the Coventry office or the Huddersfield office?
Both offices.
It was specifically said for both offices? Okay.
Yeah.
And when? Can you give any sort of time frame?
It was obviously before I went away from work, when I went off stress. September, I think it was.
September?
I don't know the dates.
Right.
August, September.
Okay. Was there any explanation given as to why that was said to you?
Well, I was just told that that's the way that the system was to go, and my pleas of saying that it wasn't going to work was ignored. My professional opinion didn't matter. But when I do the job when I've been doing it for so many years, and someone comes along and says I can't do it that way because we've got a system to do it, it makes my job impossible.
So it was put into the context of it was something to do with the system. And it was specifically the accounts department.
Accounts department, design department.
Design department, as in
in drawings.
So the architectural side of
Yeah.
things. Okay. Right. So you've mentioned 3 names there. Are there any other examples, situations, illustrations of that particular point?
Can I just say that these are items which we've already gone through with Nigel, actually.
Well, I was sort of going to come through to that because they were all part of the welfare thing that was done. But they've been specified specifically as grievances.
Yeah, and the matters which have been raised before. So I suppose the question really is there any further elaboration which Kira hasn't already done so to Nigel, which needs to be asked now, or are we going over old ground and that's what you want to do?
What I've been briefed by the HR professionals that we employ as to the approach that I should adopt with regards specifically to the grievance that has been come from the solicitor. So I'm, if you like, I'm gathering information. I'm assuming on that then that the fact that all of these have been addressed is not to your satisfaction.
Well, when you say addressed, I mean nothing's been addressed. It's been spoken about, and obviously Kira's voiced her concerns, and the questions have been asked of her before. Obviously, I've sat here through them, so I'm kind of sat here listening to the same conversation again. So that's the reason why I'm asking why the question has been asked again.
Because I've been briefed by the HR department that this is the right procedural approach to it. I've got to find out the information and respond accordingly.
But has Nigel not already got that information? Or is he saying he's sat through?
Well, the response that we gave on that effectively was outlining the fact that ProMe, for example, no longer exists. Therefore, most of the personnel that were related to that particular situation, and they crop up on more than one of these examples, are no longer even part of the company. That entire thing has gone. And I think that was all explained with regards to the feedback that was given after that meeting.
Yeah.
So I guess you're right. We're going through a very similar process, but I'm doing so because that's what I've been instructed to do by way of the correct procedure in order to give the response specifically to this letter and the points that have been raised.
I mean, obviously, there's been minutes been taken before, so what's happened to that? Has that not been passed on to your HR department?
We just go through it, Phil.
I'm not sure if I can answer your question any more than I'm following a procedure that I've been told to do.
When you say procedures, it's I just find it odd that we're going over what's already been discussed, not addressed, but what's been discussed, and Kira's explained the situation. And then obviously yourselves here, as opposed to Nigel, who's obviously, familiar with the situation. So we're kind of, that's why we're going over old ground again. So you're saying we still need to do that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
According to what the HR organisation, as you know, we use Peninsula, have instructed me. They said this is a very specific task that needs to be done. You need to do all the fact finding, you need to get all of the information so that then you can investigate it and respond appropriately in the context of a grievance procedure.
Right.
So that's what I've been briefed to do today. The discussions that took place before, I understood, were under the headline of welfare. Now, I agree with you, Phil. It seems like there's a lot of duplication on here, but I think there's a formality about doing and being seen to be doing everything appropriately, so that whatever the response is a direct result of this meeting, and not necessarily just referring back to another conversation that happened in another time and space. Okay. So if we do follow this, having taken account of what you've just said there, and you may well say to me, Kira, actually I gave more specific details to Nigel, if you refer back to those, then we'll make a note of that, and we'll refer back to any minutes and comments that have been created in the past. And
we did at the last meeting, or the last two meetings. It's okay, I'll go through that.
So, is there anything else on the communication?
Yeah, it's just the way that I was made to feel. I was told not to talk to anyone, which made it really awkward when I went into the office because, you know, I'm part of a team, and when I was told I'm not allowed to talk to anyone and I had to follow the systems, and, you know, it's all right. You know, I know Kay would change, but when the change is having a big impact on my job and nobody listens and they tell me my opinion doesn't matter, then it doesn't really give me a lot of confidence to do my job.
Okay. Should we move on to number 2?
Mhm.
Requiring our client to switch off her mobile phone when she's not at work. This is also making the performance of her role very difficult for her. So again, if you can tell me who said that and when, and if that was put into any context.
Nigel May and Nigel Williams. Basically, I said to them that I was getting calls and I felt obliged to do my job when I wasn't working. I did tell Nigel that the days that I was working at the time wasn't enough to do the job and I needed more time. I needed either an extra day or a second pair of hands when they didn't employ anyone. And even when they did employ someone, what they didn't do was set up the role where when Adam was there, he would do the work when I wasn't there and I didn't have to worry about things. But when they took on this new buyer who wasn't particularly trained as well as Adam and myself, I didn't have anyone I could rely on to do my job because I was basically having to double up on my work because I had to. Basically, if an account didn't get paid, I would get a call because the tried accounts, I couldn't get anyone to communicate with them from accounts, so this guy would ring me to sort it out, and I would have to deal with it. And so when you tell me not to turn the phone off, if I turn my phone off, then there's a big backlog of work to do, which then makes it really impossible. So I felt pressured in that if that wasn't the solution, turning off my mobile phone and telling me to switch off my phone isn't gonna improve all the problems I had, because the problem is the way that the switchover was when I'm not working.
Was this at about the same time as your comments on number 1? Is it the same people involved in the same context?
This is Nigel May and Nigel Williams.
And was this when Coventry was in effect, Coventry office?
Yeah.
Was there any context explained to you?
Well, they seemed to think that it would take off the stress, but it wasn't taking off the stress because I still had. By turning off the phone doesn't take away all the phone calls, and then I'm very conscientious. So if I know that the accounts isn't in great order, then if somebody rings me up to say, well, that material's not going to come, then it's up to me to deal with it and to get the materials on site, because then that will stop the work. And I can't take away that bit of my character, being conscientious.
So it wasn't necessarily, I'm not trying to put any words in your mouth here, but I need to understand, it wasn't necessarily the turning off of the phone, it was more, there was no other way that those issues were going to get addressed, other than you turning on your phone later to get a backlog of calls that had all queued up.
Yeah.
So that was the pressure point, effectively.
Pressure point thing, yes, and then...
Okay.
Because there was no one to do the work when I'm not there. There wasn't a system in place, and even when this new buyer did come on, Nigel didn't even let me sit down with the buyer to say how things were done or even come up with a plan. He didn't want me to do that. So
again, this is a Coventry-related buyer?
Yeah.
A Promay employed buyer?
But it wasn't the buyer that was the issue. It was Nigel that was making the issue.
Right. Okay. Anything else to say on that one?
But it was backed up by Nigel Williams.
Mm-hmm. Anything else to say on that one?
No.
So we're talking about a similar time frame to the comments in number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Requiring our client to undertake more than one trip into the office per week or any driving to Coventry. A doctor had previously advised that travelling long distances should be kept to a minimum in the light of her condition. Our client continues to find driving stressful. So again, just remind me, what was the expectation?
I was expected to drive to Stephen Peters was trying to get me to go to Coventry once a week. And Nigel May and Nigel Williams were firstly proposed it as once a month and then had the pressures off Stephen Peters, and he didn't quite understand that driving is really complicated for me. Long journeys are complicated for me. And I had to get my doctor to write a note, but that note wasn't taken. No one seemed to read that doctor's note and take it seriously. Because, the next minute I knew they were asking me to go to Coventry again. And
who was that note given to? Do you recall?
I gave it to Beverly to give to Nigel May.
To Nigel May, right.
Not Nigel May, Nigel Williams, sorry.
Right. So at that stage, were you working 2 days a week or 3 days a week?
I was working 3 days a week.
And the expectation was 1 day or 2 days at home at
2
that
days
time?
at home.
And 1 day in an office, which could have been either Coventry or...
Well, it should have been down to Huddersfield, but they kept trying to make to go to Coventry, which I told them was very difficult because I'm responsible for collecting Sharon from nursery. So nursery doesn't start till 8 o'clock. When I was getting the trains didn't get in till 10:30, 11 o'clock, and then I had to make my way to the office. So by the time I get to the office, there's not much to do. There's lots to do, but too much to do, but not enough time. Just to go for a meeting that we could have done on video Skype, but they didn't seem to like technology. But I've got a young child to think of, and I also got my health as well, and Stephen Peters made it really a point that, I don't see the problem with you driving. And I said, well, one, you don't pay me enough to cover my car. Second, you can't, my daughter. And thirdly, my health. Well, my health should be first, in fact, because I find it very difficult. I even find it difficult driving to Huddersfield because I have flashbacks when I drive to Huddersfield or any long distances, because it's the time where it's the most quietest. I'm not talking to anyone, I'm by myself. It's very difficult to explain.
Okay. But
when you say to them you can't do, and you've got a doctor's note, you would expect someone to say, right, okay, we accommodate you because you can't do it.
Which leads us on to number 4, which was the change of emphasis from 2 days a week at home, 1 in the office, to 2 days in the office and 1 at home.
Mm-hmm.
Well, can you tell me when that actually happened?
No, that's when we went for that meeting back at the office, that last meeting we had.
Okay, so that was not actually, that wasn't a historically activated something. That was
recent. Part
of a discussion that was taking place at the more recent time. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's more a question, really, is why is it necessary to alter that?
Well, it's just because I find it difficult driving, and even though it's not as far as Coventry, I still find it difficult, even more so now.
Okay. Failing to recognise the additional work our client has carried out in excess of what could normally be achieved within her working hours, and instead criticising our client unjustifiably for mistakes that were in fact the mistakes of others, such as the accounts department. Please help me with anything you can.
Again, everything that we're talking about is we have discussed in meetings with Nigel Williams. This was down to there was a couple of times when we had my job review. At no point did it say anything positive about how much work I did, how much work I committed to the company. When I told Nigel Williams and Nigel May that they were giving me too much work to do and it wasn't possible in the time, nothing was ever resolved about it, and instead I had Stephen Peters sat there for an hour telling me that I should be doing this and I should be doing that, and that my work was my working standard wasn't up to standards, his standards. But he totally dismissed a lot of the issues was down to the accounts department rather than me. He wasn't judging it on whether I could save the company money. He was judging it whether I had how many invoice queries there was. But half of the invoice queries could have been signed off without me being there.
How much of this do you put down to someone like Stephen Peters, his working methodology, and how he conveyed himself with regards to yourself? I suppose what I'm trying to get at, have we got something of a personality thing going on here, where Steve was just, I don't know, set in his ways, or...
I don't know, didn't give me a chance, I don't know. Maybe just don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what he obviously, I just got the feeling, he didn't trust me, because one of the bits of that conversation, which I've already discussed before, was that he told me off for being in A&E with Siobhan when I rang up Bev and I rang up Martin to tell them I'm not there because I'm in A&E. And he didn't believe that I actually rang up even though he was on holiday. He was on holiday and said in the future I would have to ring him regardless if he's on holiday. Now, I've never rang anybody when they're on holiday. The notion I got was if I'm ill, I ring up the office to tell them I'm ill, which I did.
So there's something there about...
But he was sat there with me and he didn't trust that I was saying the truth, and he actually went up to look in his email. And even when he realised it was true, he didn't even apologise. So it was just like, to my mind, it was somebody who didn't like me, didn't want me to be within the company. And that's why I felt, that's why I couldn't take it. I couldn't take the pressure. When someone starts trying to criticise my work but they don't listen to me. And that's when I went and spoke to my doctor saying I can't cope with this unfair criticism.
Right. Right, let's see. Failing to resolve our client's workplace issues as required by her last occupational health assessment, and instead seeking to blame our client by stating it was the fault of her personality. Failing to resolve our client's workplace issues, by which we mean what? Where you were needing to work from, or?
Well, it was just to be able to give me a work plan on how to come back to work. Taking in what the occupational health has stated, and working, giving us a plan to go back to work and dealing with putting into place an understanding about my health issues. but not basically trying to blame it on my personality, which in the last meeting when I went up to discuss about going back to work, and also when when the initial settlement was offered to me, Simon had said that it was to do with my personality. Personality had changed, and that that I had upset some suppliers, and I'm still quite offended by the suppliers, and I'm still quite offended by the personality, because the personality hasn't changed. I've had to deal with what I call a bit of harassment, and for the since all these changes went on, I was I came for a career at Parisian, and I was promised a career, and then when I came back off maternity, everything had obviously Adam was there, and then Nigel had appeared, and then Nigel started bringing all these people that he knew, and then it was
which Nigel are we talking
Nigel May.
Nigel May.
And I was just a bit upset that Simon, even though I went to Simon a couple of times, he didn't seem to listen to me, and now he's blamed it on my personality, saying my personality had changed. But if someone is being harassed and I've not changed, I'm stressed, and I have an illness, and work was my escape, and when I've started getting harassed, and I can't get out of my head about the email from Stephen Peters. What was that email he sent?
Regarding what's her name? You putting the case together. Yeah, it was obviously it was an email which was sent or copied to you in error.
Do we have a copy of that somewhere?
Nigel Williams
Nigel
has
has a copy of that? Yeah. So, approximate date, which year,
last year.
Last year?
At least August, I think it's August or September.
Of last year?
Yeah, was it September?
There is an email from Steve Peters.
I don't know what date I would need.
That is talking about you, but you were inadvertently copied in. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Have you got access to that, Howard? That's something that you know that Nigel found?
I think Nigel's seen it. I don't know if he's got a copy. Okay. I haven't seen it.
Okay. So with regards to the comment in 6, is this to do with the last round of conversations that were being had?
That was that, and also at the settlement, my personality came up both by Simon. He said it was my personality, that my personality changed, rather than seeing that I've been made to put pressure on. No one's listened to me, and that my opinion didn't matter. And then I'm supposed to. Then it's blamed on me rather than people saying, well, actually, there is errors by other people, but it's all been put onto me. That's how.
Okay, the workplace assessment and issues. Are you talking about that being part of the recent conversations that have been, or is this something from a year or two ago?
It was the recent conversations, and also when they discussed the settlement with me, with Simon and Nigel.
Which was
September
last year,
last
October, something like that?
September last year, yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Nigel Williams and Nigel May.
Nigel Williams.
So there was the expectation of an assessment.
Yeah.
Let me get the terminology right. An occupational health assessment relating to the workplace issues, the issues of which are highlighted in this letter effectively. Mm-hmm. Have I read that correctly now?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Right, okay, I understand that now. Okay. Anything else on number 6?
Well, the application. Well, yeah, it's just as it says it on there.
Okay.
Okay.
Number 7, a risk assessment in the light of our client's pregnancy and her condition and her increased mental vulnerability due to her pregnancy. Is that, and congratulations by the way, the pregnancy that you're in now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What explain to me what why that is in there in the sense of this is a grievance list effectively, and that was information
Because
that
it's part of the grievance. I can only go by what my legal team say,
okay.
and he's put it in that you need to do a risk assessment.
Like we did the first time.
Like you did the first time, and obviously because I've got more and increased to more mental vulnerability. Because I'm pregnant, my mental health is considered quite high because I'm pregnant. And pregnant is more. I'm more vulnerable when I'm pregnant.
So is it less of a grievance and more of an observation of action that would have been required?
I'm not quite sure. You would have to speak to. I would have to speak to the legal team.
All right. So the important thing is on this context that it's in the light of the pregnancy that is relevant now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, got it. Okay. An assurance that if workloads were to increase in the future, rather than place further burden on our client, additions to the workforce will be made to cover this workload. Again, it's down as a grievance. It's more of a comment required and an understanding.
But it's
of how
because
things will be moving forward.
what happened, and this is why I'm here today. It's because they sacked Adam Taylor, and they didn't have anybody else, and the work was increasing, and I kept telling them that they couldn't carry on, and it's to say basically that if you're going to work this out with me, you need to. It can't happen again because we're going to be in the same place again. I can't. I feel quite upset because the number of letters that I have received during the time, it highlighted all the times that I've been off ill, but it didn't go on to the times that I actually worked overtime, which I didn't need to do, but I needed to do the job. But because nobody had listened, but because I'm quite loyal and quite conscientious, I did it. But when people start highlighting it, it's just things, you didn't listen to me. I did say I needed some extra help. It didn't come out, and the only time that they employed someone is because I went off stress that initial time. And then when I did come back to work, there was no back to work meeting, assessment of how we can do things. It was like, oh, don't talk to them.
Again, this is the back to work at ProMay, not the back to work following.
Well, it's both because nothing's been planned because it wasn't when we talked about things. There wasn't any plans in place to say, well, how we're going to address this. We were going to do the work, and this is one of the things they did mention was about the workloads and what if we get busy again, what will happen, what is the plan, and what's going to happen when I'm not working. There's nothing in plan, and then we did discuss the settlement, and then when I said to you I wasn't quite sure what to do, I got a letter back saying about the settlement. You didn't even mention, there wasn't a back to work thing there, so there was no plan put in place. There wasn't nothing, when we were discussing things, there was nothing, not a plan for me to come back to work. And even when we were talking about the settlement, I didn't know what to do regarding work-wise because that wasn't discussed. It was just discussed about the settlement. So how can, if I can't go into work because we're talking about a settlement, I've gone back to my doctor to cover myself with a sick note. The doctor's aware of the situation, and if I am to go back, I need a working plan.
Okay. What's the distinction between, you referred back to Romeo, back to Purpose?
Well, there's a whole host of changes that have taken place over the last 6 months as a result of Promay going into liquidation.
I'm aware of that, but for Kira's, as far as I see, it's Kira's workplace, isn't it, as opposed to what is labelled as Promay or Provision.
All I'm trying to do is get the context from Kira's perspective as to who said what, when, in which context, so that I can join some dots together and come up with a perspective which I think is fair and reasonable.
Yeah, I'm just trying to draw this Promay and Provision is no difference to the workplace with Kira. This individual's being brought in, isn't it? I'm aware of there was a new contract, wasn't there, which was given to a particular time to...
Yeah, I was just after they offered me the settlement, but I didn't sign it.
I have to be as impartial as I can possibly be and research and explore and find out to the best of my ability and put all the dots together and try to understand the context from everybody's perspective. I don't have access to the likes of Nigel May and Steve Peters anymore, and their names have appeared frequently. I obviously still have access to Nigel Williams. You don't know this yet, but unfortunately Simon's not very well, so at the moment I don't even have access to Simon. So with regards to the role that I have to play in this, I've now got to collate this into some meaningful report that I think represents the best of my knowledge and ability, and embracing everything that you said to put something together which I feel is representative from, if you like, Provision's position with regards to the whole thing. That is my role in this. You're right, Phil, there is huge crossovers here in terms of all of the conversations that have already taken place, and I'll refer back to all of the information that has already been gathered anyway. So there's quite a body of work to be gone through there. One of the things particularly that Peninsula asked me to cover off is that in one of the meetings in, I think it was in August 14, you made reference or started to talk about and referred to the fact that you, reference to you being a woman and reference to having a different belief system. And so they said, please check that out, because if there's anything that Kira wants to say specifically about either of those two issues, then I should include that as well.
Well, they did, when you're working and you work for a company and they've promised you a career, and then somebody comes along who is made director, and then he promotes all your male colleagues, and you sat there and you've been criticised on your work. And there's nothing wrong with your work, and you're actually saving the money, company money, and you're actually giving your time and loyalty to them. And I did feel that there was some moments where I was judged by things, and when I said about things on drawings not being right, I was told, no, they are right, and you've got to listen to me. And I did feel that I was being judged. And I did feel there was some sexism going on there. I don't think Paul Tracy, I know he's gone now, but he didn't make my life easy, and he didn't trust what I said to him.
And did you feel that there was a sexism aspect to that?
I feel that Paul and Stephen didn't particularly value me because, Stephen Peters made it very clear They didn't think I was capable of my job.
And was that linked to you being a woman, or was that a general comment that...
I think it's a mixture of both. And when I discussed it with Martin, in fact.
Martin
McSheffrey. And he tended to agree that there was some sexism that was judging on how I was treated. Because I had a lot, I always got on with my site managers. I always discussed things with my managers, and I could always deal with them, and they knew I could do my job. But when I was talking to Paul, he would always dismiss what I say, and then he'd go off to Martin and ask Martin the same question.
So, and you felt that in the instance of those two individuals, that there was an element of sexism in that.
Mm.
Did you feel that in any other context?
I just feel that they were, I don't know, when you like I would have to go back on my notes, but the contacts I was spoken to, that's how I felt, especially from both of them two people. And I don't think that Nigel May supported me, and I just was made to feel that I wasn't capable of my job. And
okay, so talk me through the belief system comment then.
What do you mean?
Well, there's just a note in the same context of you saying that you were concerned that you were treated unfairly as a woman. Linked in that same sort of comment was something about belief system. I just wondered whether you felt that there was a I don't know, actually I don't know how to interpret it, so I was just wondering if there was something in your mind specifically about that.
I would have to go back. It was probably been down something to the emails. I always had lots of exclamation marks and Paul, which really, I don't know, it's down to communication, but he didn't have any faith in when I told him when things were right or when they were wrong. He always had to go to Martin and
So could you, if you did, I'm not saying, well, I suppose the minutes are suggesting that you said that you used the term belief system. I'm just trying to understand what you would mean by using a term belief system. Is that a religious sort of comment, or is that an ethical sort of comment? How would you describe that?
I don't know, to be honest.
Okay.
But when I first met Stephen Peters, bear in mind I never met him before, we bumped into Paul Tracy's partner, and the first thing he did when he saw it was give her a big hug, and I just felt that was really uncomfortable.
So who hugged who?
He hugged Paul Tracy's girlfriend.
Right.
As if, and I just thought it was a bit too much, and it made me feel uncomfortable, because I just think personal relationships, when you stood with someone from your working thing, I don't think it's ethnically right when you just met somebody. And the way that when he discussed about the driving was, well, if I can do it, you can do it. And it just made me feel, well, Paul Tracy can do it and I can do it. And so, yeah, I can't do it. I got a child, and
okay.
What am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to just,
Right.
I would need to go back on my notes to go through things, because it's a while ago now.
Well, look,
and then I'm dealing
with regards to that, if something comes to your mind by way of a definition, description, an explanation as to why you might have said that, just
it depends on what I was asked. To be honest, it depends on what context somebody asked me.
I'll have to look up the minutes from the August 14. Again, it was just something that the HR department picked up and said, I think it's worth at least asking, was there a deeper meaning to this? Is there a particular grievance that you would have about that? How does that fit into the overall picture?
I do feel that there was a lot of promotion in the company, and that it was all the male orientated that would get the promotions, and all I was getting was hand rubbish at my job and not performing. when I'm working. How many days was I working before I went off?
Well, you're working daft hours, aren't you?
Would I come home? No. But I was always trying to fulfil it, and then when you put the pressure on again, and it made me feel like I had to even push myself harder. But obviously I've worked myself. I felt like I was pushed into going off.
I think
With stress.
just kind of me trying to interpret what you just said then, just so it's not put out of context. It's not, you're talking about him hugging his girlfriend, what you're talking about there is favouritism as such, of being virtually a friend of the family, and as opposed to you're not insulted by just watching a work colleague hug some woman.
So to just get that right, Steve Peters, when he met Paul Tracy's future wife, girlfriend, they embraced in a sort of a hello type of context.
A hello hug, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Right.
But it's not, if I don't know somebody and then...
You felt uncomfortable
I
because
felt very
that cut across what you would feel.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I get it.
Do you know,
I get it, I understand what you say. Yeah. Okay.
There's times and places, and I know that they're all connected, they're all going to this... I know they were employing... I know Paul was good friends with Stephen Peters, and I know that Paul went to the same church as Paul, and then I kind of got quite annoyed because at the time, back in March, when the pressure was there and they had got rid of Adam, I know that Nigel May let Paul Tracy go on a Christian skiing holiday, was what I was told. Yeah, I was doing all the hours, and every time I said, well, this isn't right, or this isn't right, then I was made to felt like I was being particular. When I wasn't being particular, I was stating what needed to be done, and the information, because basically when they took on Paul, I think I spent 1 day with him, or a day and a half with him, to do a sign-over, which to me isn't enough time to do a handover. I don't particularly felt like he listened to me, and then what I saw was Paul was getting all the promotion, he was getting the responsibilities, and then...
Paul Tracy?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So anything that I would say would be overruled by Paul.
Okay.
And I was told it was all to do with the system, and it was like, well, the system's not helping me with my job, and it's making my job very difficult.
So with regards to the number of hours, did you ever keep a record of that? Because we weren't on an hourly sort of...
No, it wasn't. I think I did at one point,
sort of
but I've had work to do rather than do timetables, so it got difficult. I did at one point, which I gave to Bev, and then there's some other ones that my concern is I'm thinking I've got 3 days to do all this work, which I know I'm not going to do, and then I ended up bringing some of it home to do, and then there was some things that, it's like, well, there's nothing, some of this isn't even my job to do, but I'm doing it, but it just, I still can remember that meeting I had with Stephen Peters, and it was just the worst, I think it's one of the worst experiences I had at a workplace.
Do we know if that's a minuted meeting?
No, it wasn't.
What was that? An informal conversation or some sort of formal?
He didn't actually say, but it was.
Who he called it, or did
he
you
called
call
it? Yeah.
It was in Coventry.
No, in Huddersfield.
In Huddersfield.
Yeah.
And who was in the room?
It was just me and Stephen Peters. I mean, Simon was there because when Stephen Peters had finished talking to me, I think beforehand, I know Simon had gone on about. Some famous person that he met on holiday, and he was talking to me as normal, and then
Chico.
Yeah, he was talking about him. So this is why I'm upset.
If you consider that to be famous.
But this is what I don't understand, why Simon has criticised my personality, because before I went all, he was talking about Trico, and if I had a personality problem, then he wouldn't be telling me personal things like that. And then I had Stephen Peters having this horrendous talk with me, and I just felt this is, well, a week after I had that, I had the settlement offer, and I'd love to know what was said about me in them emails from Stephen Peters and Nigel May and Simon to make that, and Nigel Williams, or what made suddenly that it was me that had to go, or me that had to sort my personality out, because to my mind, you know, I did have that notion that, you know, is it because he doesn't like to work with women? Is he has that belief that Stephen Peters
right,
had that belief that, you know, all women should be at home and whatever, and are not performing because, I don't know, it's just the way he came across in that meeting, and it was one negative thing after one negative thing, and there was nothing positive there. I think there was some issue with Howden's kitchen. They were insistent I had to use Howden's, yet I had to get a reduction for Howden's kitchens, which mysteriously I managed to do, but it took a bit longer than what it would have been if I was normally doing quotations. And then I was told, well, we have to do this and this, and then he's saying, well, why haven't you ordered the kitchens yet? And it's like, well, one, you haven't got enough funds in there to buy the kitchens, and two, no one's approved what I've sent them. And in the end, I had to work through with Martin to sorting it. In the end, it was Martin that gave me some answers. I couldn't get the answers of Paul, I couldn't get the answers of Nigel, I couldn't get the answers of Stephen, and
okay. Have you got cramp, Howard? It's important to get it all down. Right, if there's anything else that occurs to you, you must feel free over the next few days just to ping me an email, so that I can bring all factors into consideration. I'm going to have to sit down and look at all of this to decide how long it's going to take me to come up with a meaningful response to the thing. I won't be able to do that until the earliest Monday, Tuesday next week, and then I'll be able to give you some feedback as to how long I feel I need in order to make this happen. Which I will do so, I think, Howard, by the middle of next week I should be able to put some time frame on this. As I say, in the meantime, if there's anything else that you feel you need to add, or you feel you want to emphasise, then just drop
well,
it.
I need to know what's happening, where you're gonna either negotiate. You know, if you can't come up with a solution to this, I can't. You know, I've spoken to my doctor, and I basically say, you know, it'd be nice to go back to work, but I can't go back to work because there's no clear plan in place, and there is some of the history here as well, which it's you know, you're saying that Pro May's finished now, but it's that trust. You know, when I went to Simon, I told him there was a problem, and I had the same people that were in the meeting with me saying, well, I trust these guys. You know, if that was anybody else, they would think, well, is it me that you trust them and you're not trusting me? And
Can we effectively say that the grievance procedure bit is now done?
Okay.
All right, we've finished that conversation. I'm happy to have an off-the-record conversation based on, if you like, the meeting that I was in. I did a lot of listening and not a lot of talking, because as a result of that, I felt that I seem to recall summarising it by saying there's a good way to do both. There's a good way to stay, there's a good way to leave. there was no decision as to exactly how what the future would look like with regards to whether it was a stay or a leave. Both of those were still options that were and still available. Your comment to me was that you really didn't know. In fact, I'll go a step further. You said that you came pretty much decided that you didn't want to stay. So the conversation ended up by way of saying, well, you know, whatever the future is, whichever way, there is a good way to do it, which is good for all. It needs working through and it needs sorting out. I think the next point of contact, though, was a letter that we responded to from you, which was effectively saying, I really don't think, I haven't got the exact words, but my impression of it was, I really don't think I can stay. And that's when we then responded back with a, and I can't remember exactly what the response was, but then we responded back to that, picking up what we thought was what you were communicating to us about not quite a formal decision, but an indicative decision of where you felt you wanted to take it. Now that, from my understanding, was where we were at as a result of the meeting that I was in about 6-8 weeks ago, was it? Time flies, so it may be more, it may be less, I don't know. I mean, clearly you have all the right in the world to explore the legal routes, to do whatever you feel is absolutely appropriate, as we do from our side, to explore everything that we feel is appropriate. We've tried to follow the protocol the Peninsula have given us, that's why we engage them, and we're doing everything. To me, I still think there's fundamentally a decision that you have to make as to whether you feel that there is something worth pursuing here or not. Because if you do, there is still opportunity to answer all of the questions, to put the plans in place, to define things, to look at the future, to decide how it all fits together. And we would have to put that into the context of the fact that we are very different now to how we were 6 months ago, because of all the things that have taken place. And as a result of that, we've had to make some decisions about how we are going to function moving forward. So there are all sorts of things that would need to be discussed in order to even be able to clearly define and to try to build back trust that has been lost. And they say about trust, don't they, that it takes years and years to gather and minutes to lose. And there's where we're at. So I don't think I can give you an instant trust fix, because I don't think that's how human nature works anyway. I think that there is a process that would need to be gone through. But I think fundamentally that process has got to be, is there a heart to continue to work together, or has that effectively all gone? If effectively that has gone, then we should find the solution that is fair and reasonable all round. Now, if I'm hearing that from anyone, I will respond to that. But that's where I felt we were at in that meeting that we had together. And your effective, considered response was, I'm not sure I want to carry on.
Whereas I think it was because of my... another thing that triggered me was when Simon went on about my personality, and there's no like admitting that you made, you know, no formal apology, and it's just like I still got Nigel Williams when we had one meeting in Coventry saying it's in your opinion, and he said it a number of times and it's never left me.
But I think that's always going to be the case, isn't it, Kira, that everybody will have their opinion and their perspective of every situation.
But it was when that my opinion really didn't count, and I was in tears from the moment I got down to Coventry, and I was in tears going all the way home from Coventry. In fact, I was the lowest of the low at that time.
Look, I can honestly say, Kira, that from a human perspective, from a sort of a caring perspective, any hurt and pain that has been caused to you as a result of anything that I am responsible for as director or as a shareholder or anything, I deeply and sincerely regret that. And any personal hurt that has come in your direction, I do apologise for, and we do ask forgiveness for. And I'm comfortable doing that, whilst at the same time recognising that the journey is not just one single narrow path. There are numerous perspectives to every journey, and it will be true in this case as in any other case. But in terms of the pain, as it were, that people can inflict on others, I never want to see that happen. I never want it to happen to me. Occasionally it does, but I never want to be part of something that inflicts that on other people. So from that perspective, I without hesitation, say sorry on behalf of myself and the other directors of the company. That has never ever been intended, and I'm really sorry that that's the way that you feel. But we do have to sort something out which is fair, reasonable, and above all else, in all honesty, that is going to give you the sense of, I don't know, freedom, that it's no longer a painful legacy, that there's not, oh, here we go again, I've got another one of those meetings, or I've got to go into work again, or still not working the way that I feel it should. If we can get over all of those, great. If we can't, then I think the care and the consideration for Kira, particularly now that you're pregnant again, has got to be absolute. So, you know, I would have thought within the realms of just fair and reasonable approach to everything, we should be able to come up with something that you feel comfortable is a reasonable way forward. And I think that fundamentally has got to be a decision, do I feel I want to come back to work with you guys or not? Now if you say, yeah, I really do feel I want to come back and work with you guys, then great, we look at all of that. We define what that might look like. We explore it. We do all of the things that are required with regards to what coming back to work. But to be honest, I don't think we ever got there, because I think the indication was actually that's not where it's going to end up.
I think we actually said I was a bit confused, and that's when you said because you're indecisive, we'll go down the settlement route, but what was offered was just not viable, because I've lost out on a year of work where I've been completely stressed out, and I've taken it out on Phil, and I'm just stuck at the moment because I've always worked, I've always had a career, I've always been independent, I've never had to have money off Phil. And I just feel that, to end, I kind of feel cheated, and then all these other people have gone on and are working, and the only person who's not working is myself, and I just got, I'm sorry that Simon isn't well, but at the end of the day, he did criticise me for my personality, and it's quite hurtful when someone says you got a personality problem. It's your personality that changed, but I was put in an awkward situation and made it impossible to do my job, and everything I was doing wasn't good enough.
Well, Kira, some of the personalities in the company have not changed. Others have. How the company looks today is very different to how it looked even 6 months ago. I can't say, well, great, we can slot something straight back into there, because there doesn't exist anymore. It's all so different. So, again, to me, I think it has to come back to, what do you really want? If it's going to be too much pain to consider coming back as even reasonable, then I think we should just address that maturely and sort it out. Let's look at how we sort that out. And if you feel that in order to get what you consider to be fair and reasonable, you have to go through the legal route, then so be it. That's what you feel you have to do. I feel that there's always a way of resolving things without making the solicitors more wealthy than they currently are. But, you know, if that's what you feel, then fair enough.
Well, I think am I right in saying that there's a settlement offer made, and then that was reduced?
No. The first settlement offer was made on certain calculations. Well, some of those had already been resolved by the time that the second offer, it was on exactly the same basis. In fact, it was increased. So whilst the numbers were different, because different things had happened in that journey. So an element of it, for example, was I think a holiday pay element. Well, that had already been dealt with.
But I'm talking about a year of.
I suppose, yeah, I understand that, but I suppose in the bigger picture of things, then it doesn't communicate the right message, does it?
That's the problem when it's all come down to money, though, isn't it? You know,
yeah.
No one ever walks away happy. Everyone will always feel hard done by in some form or other.
But I suppose if you're trying to communicate the message that it was fair and reasonable, then you would have kind of, you know, not turned a blind eye to that, but I don't know. I think it would have been approached differently, wouldn't it?
Did you think that fair and reasonable was a year's salary, which was your first suggestion?
Well, Kira's lost out on a year, isn't it? It's you know, it's probably just not a year's salary. It's everything else which has gone with it, and us seeking legal advice as well, which is cost money. It hasn't been a pleasant 12 months. That's for sure.
It's not the nicest thing in the world having to discuss your career with a solicitor. You know, you're talking about financial stuff, but it's not financial stuff. It's my career, isn't it? And
I mean, the other thing is we are having an off the record discussion here, aren't we? So these notes for your own purposes.
I'm not writing anything down about
this. We've done our meeting. This is not our meeting. This is just a conversation. I don't like lining the pockets of solicitors. That's for sure. But I think when we kind of, I mean, for Kira as well, is that I would much prefer she was going out working, because she kind of shouldn't take it out on me, and that's what she's always done. She's always had a career, you know, and you know, a structure, you know, an actual routine to work to, really, like everybody does when they work. And when you don't have that, then you know your whole body clock goes out, and you know, it has a strange effect when you're not working. All people are different, I suppose, but that's what Kira's always done. So you know, it has affected her, but I think she's, you know, even if you ask the question now, she's still undecided. But and it changes on a daily and weekly basis. You know, so I could kind of voice an opinion for how Kira feels now, but she could change again. You know, it's kind of like that. But it just seems to be going on this, and that's my frustration when I kind of sit in these meetings and kind of hear the same things over and over again, and it's when it's actually going to draw to a conclusion, really. And I think obviously she was looking at, well, reluctantly she kind of hopefully not end a career, but kind of end a career path, but not on the basis of being what she feels like is pushed out, without, you know, some compensation to that, for her to maybe start in the future again, hopefully, so she can pursue a career. But you know, she's obviously seen somewhere where she kind of exhausted all efforts and attempts to try and make it work. And you know, I don't discount that you guys, you know, have been thoughtful about it, but I suppose it's, from Kira's point of view, it's kind of you know, too little too late, that, you know, when the guys in question were causing her a hard time, that the management above them didn't address that, you see, and I think that's where the trust is lost as such. I guess, you know, we would have to go into debates about the management above them. As far as we were concerned, they were running their own major section of the
Well,
business.
I have the same myself, that you have to rely on the chain of command, otherwise you'd be doing everything yourself, and that's when a company doesn't work, when you don't rely on the management.
Sure.
So,
look, off the record, if this is the end of the journey, and the best thing for you is, all right, there's the need for a clean break here, then that's freed your mind up to have the baby, plan what comes next, and this is no longer part of your legacy. And if that can be a discussion that we have together, I'll come back, talk it through with you guys, with regards to what that might look like, and I guess predominantly financially, then if that was a conversation that we could have, what's the terminology, without prejudice or whatever the legalese in of all the things, that we actually came to an informal agreement that kept things straightforward and brought it to a reasonable conclusion, and that we just discussed maturely together what that might look like. I'm up for that. Now, I'm not asking for that, I'm not insisting on that, I'm just saying that if that's where we're at, I'd much rather do that and just have a sensible conversation, come to an agreement, and then we'll just deal with the thing as a, whatever the terminology is, a full and final settlement or whatever it might be. And I'd be more than happy to have that conversation.
well, I mean, with solicitors, is even when buying a house with solicitors, they're always the one who slow down the whole process, and this is going to drag things out, and the more it drags it out, the more it affects Kira's well-being. So if Kira's in agreement, then that's certainly the route I would much prefer. What do you think?
Okay. You let me know what you think.
It's not a very pleasant conversation. I find it very awkward, to be honest. I find it even awkward, having to go down a legal route. So, and it's very difficult because I'm tied in now, and I have to take the advice of my solicitor. Otherwise, I'm going to end up with a lengthy bill.
Yeah, they should act under your instruction. They're there to inform you as to what, in their opinion, the right approach is. Fair enough. But then that's their job, their career, that's what they get paid for. But if there's another way of reaching an amicable agreement where it hasn't kept their meter ticking, therefore it's not costing everybody, because quite frankly, if this goes all the way to legal, we've got to go legal. We've got to do the whole thing ourselves. We've got to put it in the hands of Peninsula. We've got to do the whole insurance route that we get covered from there. So there's a whole massive stuff and work and some cost involved from our perspective as well. I'd rather just get on with business and just carry on with the positive things, in all honesty. But it's got to be right for you guys. Otherwise, you'll always feel somehow aggrieved or begrudging that was never finalised correctly. But if we come to a meeting of minds, and as a result of that we come to a mature decision together, where you say, look, okay, I'd have liked more, well, I'd have liked less, but we've met somewhere, then I think that's a reasonable way of just bringing the whole thing to a conclusion. I don't want you thinking about all this stuff when you're going through your pregnancy. I want you to enjoy your pregnancy. I want you to look forward to the new baby that's coming along.
We certainly don't want further meetings like this when you're further on in your pregnancy.
Look, my suggestion, have a think. Just, 48 hours at the weekend, or whatever it is, just ping me an email that says, Mark, we'd like to talk some more. Informally, off the record, call it what we will. We'll meet up, we'll have a chat, and then we'll just work out a solution that everybody feels good about.
Okay.
Okay. In the meantime, I have to follow this procedure, unless something else comes along where, you know, we make an agreement, in which case maybe that will be no longer needed to be gone through. But, you know, let's not preempt that. Let's just see what you feel first. Come back with your comment, and then we'll take it from there. All right. Okay.
So I have to. I asked the doctor to give me this.
Oh, is that another? Oh yeah, fitness for work. I think Nigel was referring to that, wasn't he? Can I leave you to put that in whatever. In fact, no, I've got my folder here. I'll put it here, and then I'll decant that tomorrow. Listen, email if you need to phone me. Whatever you need to do, just phone. You've got my mobile number anyway, haven't you?
Yeah.
Well, that's easily sorted if you haven't, and just don't hesitate to call.
Okay, right.
Okay. I would hug you, but I'm not allowed to.
All the best and congratulations as well. You're going to let me know?
Yes. Yeah.
Bye bye. Where's Siobhan?
It's a nursery.
She.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't
Otherwise she'd be climbing on top of you now.
I didn't want to disturb her from.
She's friendly, is she?
Oh yeah.
Likes people.
She does.